Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee and HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever. In this video, I'm going to do another one of my requests that have come in. If you want to submit your own, you can submit them by looking at the link in the description below. This is one of several that came through from Dusan Rakic at San Diego Sword School in the States. For this question, he asked me what improvements would I like to see to HEMA gear going forward. There's a bunch of other information and kind of things coming down there. So he asked me about electrification, electrical scoring. He asked me about kind of safety standards and all this kind of stuff. Short version, might be a long version of what I'd like to see is some degree of standardization, some degree of setting standards that allow us to understand what's going on. Right. The big problem with HEMA equipment is that, let's face it, it is protective equipment. Whether you're thinking about the sword or whether you're thinking about the actual physical protection we've got, the design of it is there to keep us safe, and pretty much all of it is just some guy, some woman thinking, yeah, that'll work. They probably had some testing process, but what that is, we haven't got a clue. There's no way of kind of framing it. And there's no way of specifying what level we would consider to be kind of appropriate to it. Some stuff is just sort of reused from other things that do have some kind of standard, but not necessarily an appropriate standard. Other stuff is just made up, right? And I touched upon this in my reviews video, we all kind of look at it, we think, oh, that sounds like a good idea, and I'll try it, but we haven't got a clue. We have a clue, but it's not rigorous, it's not tested. And it's simple things like sometimes, as an event organizer that cause issues, it's like you specify things like, oh, you must have arm guards, right? Let's think about arm guards for a second, right? Very simple, right? What is a rigid arm guard, right? Which is a lot of things will say this, rigid arm guards, right? Some kind of protection. What portion of my forearm needs to be covered? Is it fine if it only comes to here? Is it fine if it doesn't cover this bit of my arm? Right, it only covers the outside of my arm. Is that okay? I use a viscoelastic, very dense foam that, frankly, from a direct hit, from my perspective, is as good as plastic. Is that good enough? It's not rigid. It's kind of semi-flexible. It's not rigid. Is that rigid? Is that rigid arm guard? I don't know. I have a small gap kind of here. I consider that fine. Do other people consider that fine? And if I'm a tournament organizer, I'll say you must have arm guards. Is the sparring glove cuff, which is again a dense foam, is that a rigid arm guard? Sometimes people will say yes. So it's even as simple as just that we go, what the hell is an arm guard, right? What the hell is the level of coverage, the level of protection that an arm guard has? So I would really, really like us to see ways of commonly specifying what this is, right? Just saying what it is, right? Let alone anything else. In terms of actual improvements, in terms of things, I think a lot of our equipment is more or less there. I would like to see less restrictive stuff, particularly for high guards and longsword. Any kind of crossed arm stuff. Most protective combinations of equipment don't let you do it. And I'd like it to be easier to do that with sort of standardized combinations, the kind of the dexterous aspects to it. I would like to have better coverage on light jackets. Is the main issue. I do use a relatively light jacket, but there's certain bits that have gaps. I would like those to be closed. And the main thing I would really like is proper understanding of how and what contributes to protecting against concussion risks using whatever combination of head equipment that we've got. Those would all be fairly standard ones. And like this is what I'm working on. I'm thinking about myself. I'd like a proper understanding of sword tips. You could no idea how much online debates there are about like what should you tip a sword with, should you tip it at all, what kinds of swords need tipping, what kind of tip, the end of a sword, like is a roll tip better than a flare tip, what kind of flare on it you need. We haven't got a clue. So honestly, I think we probably have, in the whole range of equipment out there, I think we probably actually have solutions to most of the problems. What we don't have is understanding of which ones of the things that we've got are valid solutions, and how can we tweak these things to make them better? What level of coverage is a good level of coverage or sufficient level of coverage? accounting for this kind of trade-off between protection and flexibility. And in general, as I say, what I would really like is not have to choose too much on this one. I have over the years gone for very, the unrestricted end of the kit available to us. I am aware that that does sacrifice protection in some ways. I'd like to not have to make that choice, right? I would like to have something as unrestricted as normal clothes and as protective as being fully encased in steel. Obviously, I'm not going to have that, but I would like the boundary of the trade-off to be shrunk even more. As to things like electrical scoring, I genuinely don't see the value in it, or rather, I worry and over-relying on it. So particularly when we factor in hit quality, right? I worry that any old touch will be counted as a hit because the electrical scoring says it's a hit. There are circumstances where you fundamentally see a hit, you see the action, and you're just not sure where it's connected. So something to augment the judging decision-making process that says, I saw this action. If it hit, it was a good action. I don't know if it hit. Yes, it hit. That would be useful. What I don't want us to do is have an electrical scorer that says, oh, any contact happened, and therefore it's a valid score, which is what you get with sort of modern saber and things like that. That the swords just kind of flop around and they still count as a score, and I don't want to see that for HEMA. I might do a separate video on actual scoring entirely because I think that's probably worth its own detailed discussion. But yes, so fundamentally, protected kit. The main thing I want is some degree of standardization so that we can look at something and say, I know what that's good enough for. That's good enough for me to use it for rapier. That's good enough for me to use it for longsword, because it's gone through some kind of process that says these are the ratings that it's passed and these kind of certifications it's passed and what's covered by it. Thanks for watching.